Hi everybody, this is Michelle and I am saying hello and welcome to our fourth Wakey Shakey Screencast. We've already looked at 3 of these 4 elements in the systems column, grammar, discourse and vocabulary, so today we're going to look at the very last one and have an overview of pronunciation. I'd just like to give you a bigger picture about what makes pronunciation in English a little bit different to other languages and to show you a tool that will help you to improve your own pronunciation. Here we go, have a look at the code on the left. Can you figure out what it says? This bit says Introduction to Pronunciation. What on earth is the phonemic chart? And how can it help me? So that's what this screencast is designed to answer. Basically, the English language can be divided into 44 different sounds. Some of them are shared with other languages and some of them are not. This phonemic chart contains the 44 sounds of spoken English and it's extremely useful for studying English pronunciation as it's the one that's used by most dictionaries. So you can see that it's divided into 3 sections. Here we have the vowels. If it's got 2 dots on it, it's long. So it's E, I, U, E, O, A, and O. So you've got the short vowels and the long vowels there. These are the sounds where your mouth only has to make one shape to make the vowel. Down here we've got the consonants, and most of these have a hard and a soft version. That's not the technical term for it, but that's what we're going to use for now. So for example, P, B, your mouth makes the same shape, but one is a little bit harder than the other. T, D, the same idea. Ch, J. Okay, you can go back and look at these in your own time when I show you the version that there is online. These are the diphthongs. Now what this basically means is that there's 2 sounds involved. Your mouth starts making the shape of this one, I, and then slides into this one, So together it makes the sound ear. So what do you hear with? Your ear. Here, O. So you can hear that there's a slide between one sound and the other. The thing to remember is that to have really good pronunciation and listening skills, you need to be able to tell the difference between all of these sounds and to also be able to produce them yourself and to recognize them when they're being said. Okay, so here's an example of an interactive phonemic chart that you can find online. You can find it at onestopenglish.com and the person who designed it is called Adrian Underhill. So this is the phonemic chart with the 44 sounds. And the idea is that you can click on each of the letters and it will say the sound very, very clearly, and it will also give you an example of a word where you can find that sound. For example,
E, C, up.
Okay, so these are the vowels. Here, the diphthongs.
Air, there, A, 8.
Okay, and the consonant sounds. So for example,
Ch, chair, J, just.
Okay, and there's also apps online that you can download and you can put on your iPad or your smartphone, which can be really, really helpful as well to practice. The ideal situation would be to learn all of these sounds and be able to discriminate between them. And in about 5 minutes, you might actually say that this tool is your new BFF in terms of vocabulary learning and pronunciation. Okay, so here's our phonemic chart again. And when I talk about your new BFF, I just want to look at how this can be used on a word level. So let's just start small and look at how the phonemes or the individual sounds work together. As you know, a lot of the time words in English sound different to the way that they look or the way that they're spelled. So let's have a look at a few commonly mispronounced words. For example, this word, if I had $1 for every time I have heard chocolate, I would be extremely rich by now. If you actually look at the real pronunciation of it and put the sounds together, it's ch, o, k, l, t. So it sounds like chocolate. So you can see that it actually only has 2 syllables and that the sounds are not pronounced as strongly as it looks like it would be. Again, classic mispronounced word, comfortable. When you actually look at how it sounds, it's comfortable. Telephone. And this is a diphthong in here with the sliding sound. Again, you can see very, very clearly the difference here. Commonly mistaken words, this and these. Okay, so this is how the phonemes look when you actually put them together. And the idea is to read exactly what you see. Only say the sounds that you see. And in this way, you can actually develop a really, really authentic pronunciation. So this works really, really well on a word level. The reason that this is important is that in every dictionary, you're given the pronunciation. I don't know whether you've noticed it before or not. And maybe you did, but you didn't know what the... Maybe you did, but the squiggles didn't make any sense. But you can have a look at this one here. Chocolate, and you've got the pronunciation here. This is the Cambridge Online Dictionary, and here it's given you two different varieties. It's given you the British English, which is chocolate, and here you've got the American version, which I'm not going to say because obviously my accent is British. This is the point where I want to say that there is a slight variation between the sounds present in different varieties of English, which is fine. I've used the British one because that's my language base, and the differences aren't actually that big, but what you can do is have a think about which kind of dictionary you use more often and decide which pronunciation model you want to follow. The Cambridge Online Dictionary offers both American and British, so you may want to pick one and stick with it so that you're consistent with your pronunciation. You don't have to learn more than one chart. As I said, the differences aren't that great, but the idea is just to be consistent. Chocolate is a very easy word, but this is something that I heard in biology the other day. And so it's also a pronunciation system that works for technical words as well, things that you're going to be meeting across the curriculum. And for maths. So you can see here, quadratic equation. Okay, we've looked at individual words, so now you can have a think about those words and how they actually work in context. This is one of the issues that we have with pronunciation in English. All of the following words that I'm going to show you have the word can in them. But the problem is that when they're actually in a sentence, that pronunciation changes. Let's have a look. In a neutral sentence, because of the rhythm of English, this changes. You don't say, I can swim. You don't actually say it like that. Because of the rhythm, you say, I can swim. And so can, in this sentence, is pronounced kun. I can swim. Obviously, if you want to put emphasis on it, then that's a little bit different. I can swim. Don't say that I can't. But that's a different context. This is a neutral sentence. And the phonemic chart can actually really highlight how that word is pronounced in this context. Let's look at another example. In the question, you don't say, can you swim? You say, can you swim? Again, in a neutral question. Now, the problem happens in different contexts. If you make it negative, the pronunciation changes totally. And so not can, but can't. So the vowel sound is very different. You actually have a vowel in this pronunciation, whereas in this one you don't actually even have a vowel when it's pronounced neutrally. In the positive answer, yes, I can. And so again, this is very, very different. If you compare them, can't and can. And actually, even though the vowel sound is slightly different in American English, there is still a difference. The negative is pronounced differently to this positive in this context. And again, no, I can't. Okay, so the phonemic chart can be really, really helpful to showing you how individual words can change depending on what function they have in the word itself. Without the phonemic chart, it would be quite difficult to see how this pronunciation changes. Okay, we're going to move on and have a think about the way that phonemes can be helpful in supporting natural speech, not just on a word level, but on a sentence level. World languages, I think this is quite interesting. World languages can be divided into two groups. Languages that are stress-timed and languages that are syllable-timed. English is stress-timed, and what that basically means is that we don't give every syllable in a word or every syllable in a sentence the same weight or time. Spanish is a syllable-timed language, and so you do actually say every syllable in the word, and you do actually give weight to every part of the sentence. And so this little picture is designed to show that. Look at the word pronunciation. This is the stressed syllable, and this is the stressed syllable. So we've got two big people demonstrating that, and the other little syllables are not stressed. So the way that you would say this naturally is pronunciation is important. Whereas I'm obviously not going to say this because I don't speak this language, but every syllable would have the same weight. So that's the difference between a stress-timed language and a syllable-timed language. So basically what it means is that the amount of time it takes to say something doesn't depend on the number of syllables in English. For example, dogs chase cats, the dogs chase cats, the dogs chase the cats, the dogs are chasing the cats. So basically each of those sentences takes the same amount of time to say, even though there are a different number of syllables in each of the sentences. Okay. Interestingly, there are some varieties of English, such as South African English and Jamaican English, which are a little bit more syllable time than British or American English, but we can still say that English for now is a stress time language, so that's the basis that we're going to work from. So the important thing about this is not how we pronounce the important syllables, like these ones here, but what actually happens to the syllables that we don't pronounce as strongly in a stress time language. What happens to the syllables in between? A really good way of doing this is actually to look at the words separately and use the phonemic chart to look at this. So, have. If we say this on its own, this is like a strong version. You, ever, been, to Spain. And if English was a syllable-timed language, we would just put these together and we would say the sentence like this. Have you ever been to Spain? Which actually, because English is a stress time language, sounds a bit ridiculous, doesn't it? And by using the phonemic chart, we can see how this changes. Let's put them together. Let's have a think about where the stressed syllables are. Have you ever been to Spain? If you look at the way that we write how this sounds with the phonemic chart, you can see that there are some changes. We don't say have, we say have. Not ever, but ever. Not been, but been. Not to, but to. Okay, so you can see what happens when we put these words together, and the words in between, these little ones, they become quite weak. So using the phonemic chart to actually practice pronunciation of connected speech is a really, really good technique that it would be fantastic to bring into our everyday language learning. This is what also makes it actually quite difficult to read out loud naturally, and it's what makes it difficult to understand people when they're speaking, because the words put together don't sound the same as the words when they're on their own. So it's not that people speak quickly, it's just that the way that they pronounce the words shifts when the words are put together. So you can see here that there are some strong and some weak forms. Exactly the same. When it's on its own, it sounds one way, and then when it's in a sentence, it can sound a different way. It can sound like a, or it can sound like a. Pass me a cup. And is the stronger form, or here, when you say it, you and me. So it comes out as n. As is the strong form, but when we say it, as good as. It changes. So again, this is why it's quite hard to read naturally out loud, and it's why it's quite hard to understand sometimes when people are speaking, because the way that the word sounds when it's on its own is not the way that it sounds when it's with other words. Okay, so we've looked at how understanding and using the phonemic chart can help with individual sounds. It can help with the pronunciation of words. It can help with dictionary skills. It can help with recognizing and producing words that change pronunciation depending on the context. And we can also use the phonemic chart to show how words change in connected speech. So you can use this tool to access a much wider range of features of natural and authentic pronunciation, and it can also really help develop your listening skills so that they can function on a really, really high level. So you're not just catching the general idea of what people are saying, but really catching the words in between. So it's up to you. Is this going to be a new BFF, or is it just going to be a casual friend that you invite for a Big Mac from time to time? Either way, I wanted just to show you how some pronunciation graffiti works so that you can have a look, just to have a bit of extra practice. So remember, just to have a look at the sounds as they're written and compare that to the way that they actually look. Sound them out. Okay, so I'm sending you a big cheeky grin and saying ciao for now. Have a great week.